I imagine myself playing in a Premier League game, like just panicking every time
behind the pace.
Yeah, behind the pace. Terrible, like passing. Just couldn't pass to any of his teammates. Just like he was playing for Liverpool at one stage.
If City don't win the league and he's lost out to Arteta's Arsenal, I think that is really frustrating all of a sudden. Hello and welcome back to Monday Vibes, everybody, where we discuss the biggest results and talking points from across the Premier League weekend. Mikey is still on holiday, but I have the treat to present Mr. Sam Rene. He's back again for another Monday Vibes.
It's good to be back. Appearance number 2 at the expense of Mikey's lovely holiday.
Yeah.
I am very, very jealous, but it's good to be back.
Yeah? Difficult weekend for Chelsea, which we'll maybe touch on in due course.
I'd rather we probably don't talk about that, to be honest. But yeah, it's a very difficult weekend. I was giving it the big one, saying we could end up finishing 6th. Doesn't even look like we're going to finish in the top 10 now. So, yeah, terrible weekend for Chelsea fans. But yeah. Just
frustrating as well after, that momentum built after that United result. Also, you hoped. And then Sheffield United, Burnley, just not getting over the line against the relegation fodder as well.
Yeah, on the wrong end of a late goal on a Sunday, but the right end on a Thursday. But yeah, it was very disappointing. It looked like we needed to get some momentum really from Thursday to really push on and maybe finish the season in a positive way and build for next season. But again, we just couldn't get another win, and it's just frustrating being a Chelsea fan at the moment. Sometimes I'm poch in, sometimes I'm poch out. I don't know where I am with the team at the moment, and the players as well. I don't know who is actually playing for the club, and it's difficult. It's very frustrating. Very, very horrible time to be a Chelsea fan.
Yeah, a bit of a mess, to be honest. I think you, like Sunderland right now, if you got the option to just end the season now, you'd probably just click the button, wouldn't you?
Oh, absolutely.
But let's get into today's show. We're going to focus actually on the title race. We're going to focus on the top 4 battle and a bit of relegation as well, so stay tuned for that. But of course, we have to start with events at Old Trafford. United 2, Liverpool 2. We were both working on the game. We were doing a live stream at Sky. Me and Sam were producing it along with another producer, Pete, and Joe was in the building. We had Lawrence McKenna, Culture Cams, Nicole Holiday. So go check out the highlights of that on Twitter, which Sam cut a very nice reaction piece.
Nice,
they were getting very excited.
Yeah, great
and you could see why, because Sam, this is a mental game, real seesaws of momentum. And in the end, I think Liverpool will probably be pretty gutted with the result.
I think so. The first half, they were just completely dominant. I mean, United came out the first 10 minutes really, really well. But Liverpool just showed their dominance in that first half, just multiple shots. United really didn't look like they had anything going forward, and they just looked pegged back, to be fair. But Liverpool just couldn't finish. And it's strange because Salah's so good usually towards the end of the season and just getting Liverpool over the line, but he just looked like he couldn't score for them. And then without Salah scoring, it's like, where did the goals come from? Nunez had a few chances, couldn't score. Szoboszlai had a good chance, and Nana put out a really good save. So yeah, I think they'll be kicking themselves in that first half that they couldn't go on and score 3 or 4 goals, really, because I think they could have been 3-0 up at half time. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I think they had 15 shots. United didn't have 1, I should say, rather. And, it finished XG-wise 3.9 to 0.9. And it was a similar story in the 0-0 draw at Anfield as well. Liverpool dominated that. They obviously missed some huge opportunities in that 1-1 draw with Man City. There was that Luton draw as well. So another game that they dominated on XG, so it does feel like Liverpool have thrown away a number of points in the last few weeks. I suppose we have to give some credit to United. They were, as you rightly point out, a bit of a mess in that first half, slightly lacking in desire, organisation. I think Casemiro, it's really quite sad.
He was terrible. Watching him, it was like as if I imagined myself playing in a Premier League game, like just panicking every time
behind the pace.
Yeah, behind the pace. Terrible, like passing. Just couldn't pass to any of his teammates. Just like he was playing for Liverpool at one stage, and it just looked so frustrated. I don't know why he didn't get taken off.
I mean, the difficulty is, I suppose with McTominay out, they don't really have that much depth in that area, and Amrabat has proven to be a pretty terrible loan signing as well. Just never looked quite up to the required level. But then I suppose we do need to give credit to them for coming back. I think Bruno Fernandes's finish is actually it's surprisingly difficult. I think a lot of people would be like, oh, it's an open goal, but having to take that first time, 40 yards out with Kelleher backpedaling as well, I think that was quite an impressive finish.
Really, really good goal. Really, really good. And they really needed that straight away after half time as well. And it's like, really kicked them on to have a better second half than the first half. I don't know what Ten Hag said at half time, but it looked like it worked.
Yeah, it definitely did. And I think Anthony's actually had a surprisingly good week as well. I thought he was, probably his best performance of the season, not saying much, against Chelsea on, Thursday, and then showed some dangerous moments in this one as well. And then that Kobbie Mainoo goal. We've got to talk about that, Sam, because the quality on that, as soon as I saw it, I was like, that looks a lot like Federico Makeda's. Yeah. It's actually not quite as smooth because there's no cutback involved. But still, the moment of quality.
No cutback, but to take it on his standing foot, and the finish was just outstanding.
Never looking as well.
The celebration as well. The man has aura, and he's a great player. Like, I've been watching him recently. Obviously, he's played for England and stuff, and I think... I would start him, yeah, not based off just yesterday, but I think that's just a performance that shows his quality. Like, he can come up with goals when needed, and that is what England's midfield, apart from Bellingham, kind of lacks. You've got Rice that doesn't really come up with the goals, and you'd imagine him in a free probably sitting a bit deeper than the other two. So to have Bellingham and Mainoo potentially popping up with goals is quite exciting.
Absolutely, and he was really sort of efficient and effective in this game as well. I think he tried to make 5 tackles. He came away with the ball 5 times, 100% tackle success rate. Also got an interception. And when you see Casemiro struggling with the pace of the game, Mainoo was sort of growing into it as well, and he starts the move that leads to his goal as well, driving forward, always taking the initiative, always taking that first step forward. And yeah, what an exciting emergence from a player that I don't think many non-United fans had heard of before the start of the season, to be honest. And now I'm with you. I'd start him for England. I think over Gallagher, definitely over Phillips, definitely over Jordan Henderson. And if you want someone with a bit of defensive nous and defensive capabilities, as well as being the sort of all-round threat, then he does feel like the natural fit in that third midfield slot. Whereas a couple of months ago, you probably say Trent Alexander-Arnold, but his injury issues have put a stop to that. Okay, I mean, we've talked about United. They'll take that, given how it went.
I think
on the stream yesterday, I was quite confused by Joe and Culture Cams both being like, I'm a bit disappointed.
They just got greedy. They went 2-1 up and got very, very greedy.
They got greedy.
They forgot who they were for a moment in terms of Man United sitting 6th.
Yeah, absolutely. And we should definitely touch on actually the penalty as well. What did you make of it?
Initially, I thought it was a penalty. But looking back, it's one of those where I think Elliott's expecting the contact, and he's just gone down that way. I don't think Wan-Bissaka actually fouled him. And I was quite surprised that VAR didn't overturn it.
I agree.
I don't think it was a penalty. I think he's sort of expecting the contact. Hannah's gone down. The referee's just probably.
And if there is any contact, as you say, it comes late. It's almost in the second part of the challenge, whereas Elliott's already falling over. Yeah. He's sort of, as you say, expecting it. A dive is a big word, but
I wouldn't say as a dive. I think it's clumsy from Wan-Bissaka, and Elliott's probably thought, okay, this looks like a penalty if I maybe go down. I wouldn't say that's maybe a dive. That does sound very much like I've just called it a dive.
No.
I don't think it was a dive. I think he's expecting the contact, has probably just gone down expecting to be clattered, really. But I think it should have been overturned.
Yeah, definitely. And also sometimes if the leg is off the ground like that, he is only going to fall over. But yeah, it felt like the contact was in the second part of the challenge. I could kind of see why they didn't overturn it, but at the same time, it did feel particularly soft. But then at the same time, all the focus is going to be on Wan-Bissaka's decision-making, making that challenge at that time in the game. That is his game. He is a slide tackler. It's like it's his best attribute, really. But actually, further back in the move as well, Bruno Fernandes is skinned on the right-hand side, and then Casemiro, there's a 1-2 played around him far too easily. As we've summed up, like Casemiro's drop-off this season is pretty startling, to be honest. And it does go back to a little bit of his final Real Madrid days, where he wasn't really the sole sitter, to be honest. He was actually given a lot more license to go forward. Sometimes he'd be the furthest forward, and Kroos and Modric would sit deeper, and he'd be, given a license to go score goals, because actually his goal-scoring record in his final few years at Real Madrid was really good, and even last year scored some massive headers, not least in the Carabao Cup final. But just looks like his legs have gone, which is just a real shame. And when you've committed that much money to someone for a 3-year contract, I think, it's again another sort of, would they have done this with Ineos in place? Would they have done this with the new structure they're trying to put in place? And of course, he wasn't even their first choice as well. They wanted Frenkie de Jong. We need to talk about Liverpool, though, because you're right to point out the finishing. I mean, only of their top 5 goal scorers this year, which is their 4 main attackers, which you all know, and Gakpo as well, only Jota has overperformed his expected goals. It does feel like finishing is the main issue. I mean, where does this leave them in the title race? Because now they've lost their initiative. Do you think this is a hammer blow, or just do you see Arsenal and City also dropping points from now on in?
I think the Liverpool fans can't be too disheartened in the fact that they did have that 2-point buffer. So obviously that's sort of saved them a little bit. So now all level on points. Arsenal have got a superior goal difference, which at this stage of the season, you're looking at it like this could go down to goal difference. So yeah, they'll be kicking themselves they couldn't win, but they have dropped points recently where they should have really picked up 3 points. But they've got, out of the 3 run-ins, obviously City have got, you'd expect City to, like, you wouldn't be even surprised for City to go on and win every single game for the rest of the season. But looking at Arsenal and Liverpool's fixtures to come, Arsenal's look a lot trickier than Liverpool's. But yeah, I still think Arsenal will go on to win the league. I don't know why they just look so strong and so resolute defensively. And that's always a key factor when you're going on to win a title, is how good do you look defensively as you can build on going forward. And they don't have a Haaland or a Salah where the goals are coming from all the time. All the players are sort of chipping in. Saka's not been in the best form recently, but they don't need him to be in form if they've got Trossard and Havertz that are scoring. Mm-hmm. So based on that, yeah, I think they'll go on to win the league. But Liverpool, I think they've got to have some positives. They're still in the title race. They're still missing Jota. Jota yesterday, I think, would have made like a massive impact because Nunez didn't look great. Diaz was actually really good yesterday, I think, but his finishing just seems to let him down. And Salah seems to be in and out of form at the moment.
Had some injury issues this year.
Some injury issues, but yeah, I think Liverpool haven't got to be worried at the moment. I don't think.
Yeah. I don't think they'll be worried either way, because it almost seems quite strange with such a good opportunity to win the title. But given the fact that no one really expected them to win the title this year, with that whole new midfield, big characters, big personalities, big players for them in the past, Fabinho, Firmino, Milner, Henderson all leaving, I think it's a little bit of a free hit. But then at the same time, with that Klopp factor of him leaving as well, they'll want to finish with another Premier League title, because it's the only really sort of blot on his copybook, really, is the fact he's not been able to get over the line enough. And in a year where it doesn't feel like City, Arsenal feel like the favourites now, but if City don't win the league and he's lost out to Arteta's Arsenal, I think that is really frustrating all of a sudden. So you can definitely look at it in different ways. I'm kind of with you. Week on week, I'm starting to think Arsenal, with the way they just do not concede chances, in a very different way to Man City. I think Man City's defence this year has not been as solid. They haven't really hit top gear yet, City. I still think we're kind of waiting for it. Although having said that, in the last week, they have scored 8 goals and did perform pretty well against Crystal Palace, although did concede 2. Like that is always the thing. Like Arsenal just feel like by far the most solid. Yeah. But maybe with not the same elite attacking star power in quite top form just yet. So you can make a case for all of them.
For Arsenal, you sort of look at that Brighton game, you think, maybe last year you think, that's going to be a really tough game. And 3-0. They didn't even look like, they didn't give
barely gave
a chance.
Them a sniff, yeah.
Exactly, and like you say, City conceding 2 to Crystal Palace, there is something not quite right there. And one of the goals, I think it might have been the Mateta one, where Stones just looked completely out of place, which was very strange.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's maybe some nerves there going into it. I dare to say nerves because they're treble winners, of course, but going in towards a 3-horse race towards the end of the season, is Pep feeling the pressure a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, so many of his key players have missed so much game time this year, like De Bruyne, Stones. They've obviously lost Gundogan, they've lost Mahrez. The Cole Palmer decision, could he have made a difference at different points in this league? Hindsight's a wonderful thing. He probably wouldn't have got the game time he's got at Chelsea, but it doesn't feel like they got their summer business necessarily spot on in the way that they have in the past as well. So, guys, you can make a case for all of them. Who do you guys think is going to win the title? I think it's going to come down to the wire. I'm kind of with you. I don't think this is a total disaster from Liverpool's perspective, but if they don't get over the line, they will look back on these 4 points dropped against a really poor United side, probably the worst in Premier League history, as a real error. Right, let's move on to the top 4 race and Spurs' victory over Forest, because they were 1-1 in this game, and then 2 wonderful goals from Van de Ven and Pedro Porro saw them through. Again, Sam, not necessarily the cleanest performance from Spurs, but they are getting over the line. And, they are now ahead of Aston Villa on goal difference with a game in hand. Advantage Spurs for you?
I think, advantage Spurs, as much as it pains me to say that. That yesterday's performance, I think you can always tell, momentum-wise, if you go on to win a game that you don't look like you're convincingly going to win, it's a good point. It's a good moment for your team to be in that sort of situation. defence coming up with 2 goals. Van der Ven's goal was brilliant. Pedro
He hits
Porro's,
that so
I know,
hard.
it was brilliant. And then Pedro Porro's finish as well. I thought that was pretty impressive.
Really nice goal.
But definitely advantage Tottenham. They do have some tricky games coming up. They're going to have a massive say in the title race as well with Arsenal and Liverpool. But yeah, I think they've got Arsenal and Chelsea to come.
Yeah. Newcastle, Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool in their next 4 games.
And Villa have got City as well. I think they've got some
yeah.
really tricky games, because it's going to be those sort of top 5 teams are going to have a real say in who finishes where, really, even in the title race and the top 4. But yeah, at the moment, definitely advantage Spurs. I think they just need to score a few more goals, maybe look a bit more convincing. But there's no one really putting pressure on them apart from Aston Villa.
Is it sad seeing Timo Werner sort of contributing it, let's say? I don't think he's looked necessarily exceptional.
Did you give him that assist yesterday? Is that
well, it's always a bit loose. It's one on FPL, I think it's an assist.
FPL assist.
But you know, he has caused damage on occasion. How do you reflect on, as a Chelsea fan, watching Timo Werner play for Spurs?
It's sort of similar to watching Kai Havertz play for Arsenal. I suppose it's different with Havertz in a sense that he's scoring goals, and it's like, why were you not doing that at Chelsea? He came up with some good goals, but not in the same reign of form as he is at Arsenal. But Timo Werner, I always was a massive Werner fan. I always thought it's similar to Mudryk at the moment. I think there is a really good player there, and then I'll go on to think that he's not a very good player.
Yeah. Big swings of momentum.
Yeah, it doesn't really affect me too much that he's at Spurs, because he's not really set the world alight there. He's just a nice player, like a nice player to have in your team. He doesn't really do anything too special out of the ordinary. His finishing's not the best.
No. Well, he is good at getting those opportunities, though. Like
getting there and then
he
just
is.
missing.
Yeah, exactly. But he is like he's a quantity forward, but not necessarily the quality of finishing. Like, he can get himself in dangerous areas consistently, but as you say, the composure is sometimes lacking. It was actually, I think it's worth pointing out that Spurs, I think only Arsenal have had their defenders score more goals than them this season in the league, which has been really helpful at points. And Pedro Porro, I think this was his first in the league. He obviously scored that spectacular goal against Burnley in the FA Cup. And Van der Ven as well. What a debut season he's had. You know, if he hadn't have missed that huge chunk of the middle part of the campaign, he'd be in the running for team of the season, as far as, you know, I'm concerned. Although, you know, with Gabriel, Saliba, Van Dijk having had such spectacular years, he, you know, in the running, in the conversation, not necessarily going to make it on the bench. On the bench. But I mean, Forest fans will be shouting at Monday Vibes in their screen right now, being like, "You're going to mention Maddison punching Ryan Yates?" It looked like a clear punch to the stomach of Ryan Yates, which was a big moment, and it's frustrating for Forest fans. Like, they've had a lot of decisions go against them in the last few weeks. It feels like them and Wolves and Burnley in particular have been hard done by VAR at points. And Ryan Yates was clearly tasked with doing a man-marking job on Maddison, and Maddison just really lost his cool. Not a good moment for him. He really got away with it there. I'd be frustrated if I was a Nottingham Forest fan. And with Luton beating Bournemouth, which we'll get onto in due course, it makes it really, really tense down there. So it's going to be absolutely fascinating. I also saw a lot of Spurs fans online complaining about the performances of Yves Bissouma recently as well. Not quite been at his best or in his early season form from the start of the season. Maybe that's a position that they look to add a little bit more strength and depth if Højbjerg's going to leave this summer, but it feels like strike is probably their main area of priority.
I think Forest, that Chris Wood chance as well.
Oh,
how on earth has he missed that? I don't know. I think he just got carried away and thought, I'm just going to smash this and make it look brilliant. But how on earth? All he needed to do was literally just side foot it. He
was there. I don't think Vicario is going to get across.
It was just bizarre, because that would have put them 2-1 up. And it's like, you're in a relegation fight here. You don't need to make an open goal look nice. Just put the ball in there.
Just do it. And he's been in such great form recently as well. I think he's now scored over 10 league goals in 5 Premier League seasons, and that's a feat only achieved by, I think it's 5 others in Premier League history, and it's like Kane, Aguero, Henry, and then Chris Wood. So like he's done exceptionally well this year. But I agree with you, that is a big moment. I mean, Villa, we might as well talk about them as well. Threw away a 2-goal lead. Were losing 3-2 against Brentford, eventually pegged it back. Ollie Watkins post-match talking about not having enough mentally to get over the line in those big moments, not controlling games well enough. And that is, it's been noticeable in their last 5 games. I think they've only won 1 of their last 5. They've conceded 12 in that time. they are fading maybe at just the wrong time.
I think that just comes with experience, really, because the squad, there'll be players in there that have gone through sort of title challenges and top 4 finishes, but the squad as a whole and the club as a whole haven't really been challenging for the top 4. But that should come from the manager. He's got so much experience winning European titles. He was at Arsenal, obviously. So it should come from him, but you can't obviously control the players a lot when you're on the pitch. It just seems like they're lacking a bit of experience to get them over the line, and it seems like you say they're fading away a little bit. And I think Spurs, having finished in the top 4 probably more recently than Villa, will have it enough to get over the line compared to Villa.
I think Boubacar Kamara is a big miss in front of that defence as well. I just don't think Tielemans and Douglas Luiz gives away a lot of silly free kicks. I think he's a great player, but slightly lacks a bit of composure at times as well. And no Tyrone Mings for an entire season. I think that's a huge blow, definitely on that leadership front as well. Yeah, difficult one. I mean, from Forest perspective, just to finish on them, having had that amazing performance against Fulham in midweek, probably their best of the season, that's a big blow. Spurs, well done for getting over the line. Villa, we keep on talking about top 4, and actually, depending on how results go this week, it'd probably be 5 teams qualifying for the Champions League anyway, but we're so ingrained with top 4. But it does feel like Spurs have the momentum, definitely over Villa.
It would be nice to see Villa in the Champions League.
I totally agree. I think they've been amazing, and especially given the injuries that they've had, as I've already talked about, the expectations going into this year, they've been one of the stories of the season. Let's quickly touch on relegation then. Huge comeback win for Luton. Ended a run of 10 games without a win.
Massive.
Carlton Morris popping up with the 90th minute winner. Does it get any better?
It does not get any better. I really, really want them to stay up. I think it's.
Where did you have them before a ball was kicked?
Do you know what? This sounds stupid to me to say now, but I actually thought they would stay up.
Did you? I did not.
I don't know why.
I had them 20th, I think.
Maybe that was just me wanting them to stay up more than actually thinking. But if you look at sort of Burnley and Sheffield United, they've got a bit more, I don't know if it's fight, because obviously the other teams will really want to fight to stay in the Premier League. But Luton, have got a bit of something extra. I don't know if it comes from the manager. Ross Barkley's been absolutely brilliant this season.
Another former Chelsea boy.
Shining elsewhere. It's all coming from Chelsea, But yeah, I think they have enough at the moment to stay up. But I think they will, just based off the heart and the fans getting them over the line. The manager, Barkley's going to have a big say in this for how they play coming towards the end of the season. Carlton Morris popping up with a goal. I would like them to stay up because I don't want a teeter-totter team that comes up and down. Luton seem to have earned their place in the Premier League for me now.
I think it's been an amazing story as well, and with Tom Lockyer and everything that went on with his cardiac arrest as well, it'd be great. I mean, in terms of the run-in, they've got a really difficult set of away games. They go to City, West Ham and Wolves. That's not easy. Forest final 3 games, Sheffield United, Chelsea, who obviously aren't in great form, and Burnley. So it does feel like that might have a say in it.
I think they can sort of write off the Man City game and just say, look, they're not going to win that. Best result, they could potentially somehow scrape a draw, but I don't see that happening. But those last 4 or 5 games after City, they have to win at least 2 or 3 of those. They have to put in and give everything those last 4 or 5 games, and they're not games that they could really expect to get like heavily beaten in. They're games that are winnable for them.
Yeah.
And I think they will. I think they will. There's a massive game in there. I think is against maybe Bournemouth or Everton. Sorry, against Everton. That's a massive game. And Everton have also got to play Forest. And I think Everton are in a bit of trouble at the moment. They've obviously won the other day, first time in a long time for them.
13 games, I think. Yeah.
13 games. So whether they've got momentum coming off that or whether they're just going to drop.
Calvert-Lewin can't stop scoring though.
Well, I don't know if you could, those goals, I don't know if you could really claim them.
No, definitely not. Same with Nunez against Sheffield United in midweek as well. That's just complete flukes. But yeah, it's great for them to see it go in. And also nice for Luton to get a 2-1 win in this game, given the fact that in the Bournemouth, in the first round, I was going to say first leg, but when they previously played Bournemouth, they're obviously 3-0 up and lost 4-3, which was that sort of start of their mini run where they really struggled. For Bournemouth, they need 6 points from their final 7 games to top their best ever Premier League points tally.
Oh, wow.
which was in 2016-17, obviously under Eddie Howe, when they finished 9th. And they did have an outside chance of European football still. I think that's probably looking unlikely with West Ham beating Wolves at the weekend. But great season from Andoni Iraola, and it does feel like he's going to be a manager that's going to be looked at by big teams. Yeah. Maybe at the end of next year, maybe the year after that. He does feel like he's on that sort of trajectory. Although there was reports of him being linked with Barcelona last week, which does feel like a huge step up for him. But
that's kind of crazy compared to the start of the season when there were a lot of people thinking he was going to be one of the first managers sacked.
Well, yeah, I think they got off to a terrible start. I think it was a couple of wins in the first 10, maybe one in their first 8. Yeah, it really wasn't good at all. So if you have to say head over heart, are you saying Luton stay up, or do you still think Forest? But heart,
my heart is with Luton.
Your heart is with Luton.
I don't know why.
He bleeds white and
apparently,
orange.
Yeah. I've given up with Chelsea this season. I'm now a Luton fan
I love
for the rest of the season. Head is saying they won't have enough because I think Forest's squad is obviously a lot better. But in terms of heart, I think they will. They're both level on points. There's all to play for. I hope it goes down to the last game of the season, and I hope Luton can just nick it right at the end. Stay up.
That would be epic. That would be epic. I also think Forest, they don't have the neutrals behind them, Forest, in the same way that Luton do, obviously, with their rampant spending over the last 4 windows, whatever it is, 40 plus players signed. It's not the storyline that everyone's going to really get involved with. It's Luton staying up, in my personal opinion as well. But guys, get your answers to 3 questions in the comments. Who is going to win the title? Who's going to finish in the top 4? Although both will probably qualify for the Champions League anyway. And who is going to go down out of Luton, Nottingham Forest, Brentford, and now just above there as well, Everton. Get your thoughts in the comments down below. Big respect and get a lot of positive comments to Sam Rene for his second time on Monday Vibes. Absolutely nailed it.
Brilliant. Loved it. Enjoyed it. Hopefully we're back again.
Absolutely. Guys, have a great rest of the week. We will catch you on Sunday for Sunday Vibes.